you will get the Monday morning vibes. It's the only way I know how to do it now. So yeah. It's not going to be a hump day vibe. It'll be Monday. Come on, let's get going. So, yeah, let me know how you're getting on. We've got Tom Hopkinsburg says, wish it was Friday. Don't we all? Don't we all? Nathan says, hi. Yes. Say hi and where you're listening in from. Who are the Wednesday crew? Tell me. Okay, I have to say the leaders I've been coaching and training last week, they're on their knees. What about you? I think generally this time of year people are shattered anyway, just tired. But the sun's shining and the barbecues are usually going, and you get this renewed sense of energy. Are you getting that? I don't, I'm not feeling that kind of renewed energy vibe. It doesn't help this weather. I opened up the curtains this morning and the weather is pretty grim in Bournemouth. Not sunny Bournemouth today, although in Bournemouth it's got a habit of clearing away and just looking marvelous. So, what are we doing today? Today we'll be talking about Gavin Williamson's latest announcements. Our Gav. Yes. But we'll have Patrick Otley O'Connor. He's becoming a Teachers Talk Radio regular. He's been on my show a couple of times. He'll be in at 8 o'clock. I know he won't. He'll be on in a few minutes, actually, in 10 minutes. And then at 8 o'clock, we have Safet Vakulic. Anyone that usually listens to the Monday show usually knows that this time in the morning, I can just about speak. So I get most names wrong. So I'm sure Vakulic is probably wrong the way that I've said it. But when he comes in, I'll ask him how it is said. But we'll be talking to him about he survived the Bosnian Serb war, was a child refugee in this country, and we'll be talking to him about his experiences of, well, living through that war and being a refugee in this country, as in the UK. 25% of our listeners are from around the world, so a bit UK centric today. With listening to the latest of Gavin Williamson's our great I'm trying not to be rude. I'm not always known for my diplomacy. Gavin Williamson's latest announcements, our education secretary in the UK. Okay, so usually I talk about the weekend shows, but the last few days, who have I been listening to? I haven't listened to many because I've been quite busy, but I will say at the weekend I listened to Amy on a Saturday. Always fantastic. I listened to a bit of Graham's on Sunday. I listened to Khalil's show. Love Khalil. Yeah, just listen to a few shows there. I love that we've got over 20 hosts. I think we've got 23 hosts now. And things change, end of term, priorities change. So we're looking for more hosts. We've filled up every breakfast slot. Can you believe that? Every morning you can tune in, talk it out on Teachers Talk Radio. So yeah, any morning you can listen in. So what I usually do now before the first guest is talk about the headlines. Now I was looking at the headlines last night. Oh dear. Yeah. Is there much? Yeah. I'm going to try not to be maudlin. Yes. I'm going to try. I'll do my best. We've got a few more in the studio coming up. Just say hi and where you're listening in from. We've got DC, David Cunningham. Welcome. Okay, so Hi, David. Okay, let's have a look at the headlines. Of course, the big news today. No, seriously, the big news today is the England v Denmark match. Okay, now I've been trying not to get excited. Trying really hard not to get excited about the England game. Um, and anytime anyone says, "Oh, it's coming home," I was like, "No, not. Shush! It's not coming home. Shh, shh! Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it." Because that three lines on his shirt song just says it all the years of hurt, the pain. And if there's a team that you want to win, it's going to be this lot, isn't it? What a lovely bunch of guys. um yeah, if anything, I'd want Gareth Southgate to win because he's just the loveliest man on the planet. Okay, so England v Denmark today. um Yesterday, Italy beat Spain on penalties. I'm glad I didn't watch that because, yeah, I don't think I hope to God it doesn't go to penalties tonight because I don't think I can't take that kind of. I can't do it at normal times, but yeah, I can't cope. Just can't cope with something like that. So let's check out the papers. Right, the Daily Fail. Isolation insanity. Fury has quarantine rules to last until mid August, threatening holidays and business and ruining plans for up to 3.5 million people every week. So, you've got every paper has something to do with England, obviously. Um, And then if you look at the Daily Telegraph, again, they're talking about isolation rules, slam the brakes on freedom. I've had a few, not debates, but conversations about this Freedom Day people keep talking about in the UK. I'm very skeptical about the whole thing. The COVID numbers have shot up recently in the UK, and although our hospitalizations are much lower than months ago, they're still going up uh, to where they were a couple of weeks ago. So for me, it feels like the wrong time to be loosening the reins. But there are lots of people that I talk to that think, well, if we don't get back to normal now, when are we going to? Lots of people are saying, people's mental health is suffering. And I appreciate that. I mean, I'm lucky. I live with people, my family that I love and like. But if all this lockdown business was happening about 15 odd years ago when I was living on my own in my flat in London, I think it would be a pretty um, difficult experience. So I can see why people just want that sense of freedom. But only for me, it's like only about 50% of our population, I think it's about 53%, have been double vaccinated. Some people say that's enough for them. It doesn't feel enough for me. If we wait until September, everyone will be vaccinated. So why not just wait about 6, 7 weeks? I don't know. Yeah, I'm still going to be careful. I'm still going to be wearing my mask. I go to choir, and there's lots of vulnerable people. And last night we were all, 2 meters apart and singing. And we are allowed after the 19th to be close together and singing, but our choir directors were very clear that we need to respect other people's views and understand that some people still feel vulnerable. And I totally appreciate that, because whilst I don't feel vulnerable, I don't think it's safe enough to just be singing in each other's faces, put it that way. We've got, hi, Patrick. Patrick is in the house. Okay. Yeah, I'll let you know when to call in. Right. Okay. So, The Guardian fears 10 million may face summer isolation as COVID-19 cases surge. You know, this is just a couple of days after Freedom Day was pretty much announced. Daily Express, come on, England, you can do it. Yes. Apologies to all the Welsh and the Irish and the Scots out there. But you must be, well, you tell me in the comments. You tell me in the comments, are you rooting for England or do you hate us? I'm just asking because I do remember Euro, Euro 2002, was it? It was 2002. It was the Greece match anyway. And I remember being in a pub with my then boyfriend, who was Scottish. And when Beckham pretty much made the goal and scored the goal, the entire place erupted. And just honestly, at that point, it was like the happiest day of my life. So I was jumping up and down and then wondered, where did he go? So went to go and find him. And I was like, you're right. And he's like, I just realised how Scottish I am. And I just thought, don't rain on my parade. But yeah, kind of, a Scotsman in England, what's it like at the moment? Are you hating every second, or are you like rooting for us as well? You rooting? Okay, Patrick, if you see, are you on your phone? If you're on, oh, hang on, yeah, I'll invite you. There you go. I might have missed you earlier, but yeah, I've invited you in. Okay, we've got the masks were ditched for the economy. Yeah. And the Times, we've got travel rules ditched in weeks for vaccinated. Who's that on the front cover? I can't tell. And the Metro, here we go. See what I did then? Not me, but the Metro. Football and beer make the front of the Metro. It reckons fans will sink 30 million pints. Patrick, are you in? Because I let you in, but I don't know if you're actually in. Because I'll let you in again. Hang on. There you go. Yeah, 30 million pints. Oh, I hear something.
I think I'm in.
You're in. We have Patrick Otley O'Connor in the house. Welcome.
Good morning, Mal.
Morning. Now, you've been a bit of a busy bee, haven't you?
It's been a bit of a busy week or two, with a variety of things.
So yes. I saw on Twitter somebody put, it's Hurricane's dad on the TV.
Yeah, I think that was the most liked tweet last night. In fact, my wife took a screenshot of it and shared it with her friend. She thought that was the best bit of it.
Yeah.
Look, it's Hurricane's daddy on the television. Yeah. That was the thing that went out.
Now, those of you who don't know, Hurricane is it Siberian?
No, Iranian Spur-thighed tortoise. 66-year-old tortoise called Hurricane.
Wow. 66 years old. And every now and then I show the videos to my boys. They just love it when he's playing football. So if you've not seen it, those of you listening, go onto Twitter, check out Otley O'Connor, and I had a look, and the video that's been pinned has been seen over 2 million times.
Yeah, that's just crazy, isn't it? That was right at the start of lockdown last year, when we first went into lockdown. It was the moment that Hurricane had just come out of hibernation himself. So a week after he's come out of hibernation, we've gone into it. And it was a Teach a 5-a-day tweet that basically encouraging us all to keep exercising and keep connected. But didn't realise it was going to go that crazy.
Yeah. Hurricane's a star. Yeah. Now, so you've been on the BBC, you've been on radio, and I was like, oh, Patrick, you were like one of my very first guests. I need to get you in. So what have you been talking about? What are the key announcements that have been made?
Well, We've obviously like most schools, all schools, we've been affected by students having to isolate. And in fact, I started at the school about now in September last year, and between September and October half term, up until the penultimate day, didn't have one bubble burst, and I was feeling really quite smug because all the schools local. I thought, we've got this cracked. We've got our one-way systems, our sanitisation, our kids are doing what they should be. It felt right, even though nobody knew what we were doing again. As throughout the full pandemic, really, we've made it up as we've gone along, haven't we? And just tried to do the right thing. But so up until then, and then after October half term, we came back, and then every bubble in the world seemed to burst in our school. And we had out of the 1,250 students we have, 1,000 of them had to isolate at least once during that period between October and Christmas, with some students isolating 6 times because their bubbles kept repeatedly bursting. So that was not a good position. And then we obviously after Christmas, when we all went into lockdown again, that was in terms of lockdowns, a bit of a golden period for us. The students were really well engaged. They'd all got the kit, they'd got the equipment, and like a lot of schools, we got our act together in terms of what we were doing there. And that was a good period of time. But as we were looking to open up, and we came back into do, if you remember, all the secondary schools had to do, all children were tested 3 times in that first week and a half, 2 weeks back. We were increasingly concerned that we were going to be just like we were before Christmas, and students were getting really anxious. Families were getting anxious as well, but the students in particular were getting really anxious about that thought that they may be locked down again. So when we found out the DfE were looking for some pilot schools, some trial schools to join this clinical trial, we volunteered, and it was at the time, I think, a brave decision for the school. Not for me as a leader, but as the school to make that decision. Students, staff, and myself and governors to engage with it, because it meant at that time, where everybody was isolating, if there was any case, that if a student tested positive, any close contact would stay in school but have a daily contact test each day. 7 days of lateral flow tests, with on day 2 and on day 7 a PCR test that was then couriered off to the NHS for testing as well. And although it was that sort of decision at the time, I'm not really sure how it was going to work out, it worked so well for us. In fact, during that period of time, we've had 40 bubbles burst between March the 15th and June the 24th, which is the clinical trial period. And out of those 40 bubbles, it's meant over 500 students have managed to stay in school that would have been sent home. That's over 3,500 learning days that would have been lost in school to students isolating at home. So a massive bonus for those students. Yes, face-to-face teaching. Yes, the progress you make in class is better than that at home. But actually, in terms of the mental health of those students and staying in the relief, and families as well, it's just a real big, snuggly comfort blanket for people to know that they're not going to be after isolating. But again, the staff were part of the pilot as well. So when, I think it was 2.5 weeks ago now, or 3 weeks ago, we had 2 members of staff who tested positive. There were 16 of us who got pinged. So I was one of them through track and trace as a result of that. And we would have had to isolate, but we were able to turn up again. My absolutely fantastic office staff who run our testing came in extra early. They were in at 7 in the morning to make sure that the teachers in particular could get themselves sorted for the day. So we'd come in, do the contact test or the PCR, and then go about our business. I mean, importantly with this, it wasn't just you could just have free reign to do what you wanted. You were tested. If it was negative, go about your business in school. But at the end of the day, you had to return home to isolate. At the weekends, you had to isolate. And we found that people did that. You never know. You can't police in those terms. But the feedback was very positive from families and the parents and the children themselves that are trying to do our bit. So in terms of our pulling our school together and Team West Horton, as we like to call it, a really sort of strong period for us. And so the media interest, the Sky News have been on, the Times, BBC, a variety of shows, and all range of things, and of course your show. We decided as a governing body, as a leadership team, but also as a school, that would share our experience, if in some way that could influence any decisions coming in the future, because none of us knew what was going to come. I've been calling for decisions through my professional association, through ASCL, but also through my own channels as well, just trying to encourage a decision to come earlier, so we're not having to just start planning for what's going to occur in the summer, as we've, in the holidays where we've been before, where the staff, all staff, need to be able to take some sort of, at least some good chunk of a break this summer to recuperate. So now we've got a decision. We've now got to make that work.
Yeah. So that, I mean, it's great that you're going everywhere and putting the message out, because when I look at the headlines and various things, that message isn't coming through. In terms of the DFE, it seems a bit kind of, right, there'll be no bubbles from next week, and then there's not really as much of what the alternative is, or if there is an alternative. So what is the idea? Is there going to be a rollout of this program, the way that you're doing things, or is it up to each school?
Well, the clinical study was a Department for Health and Social Care. It was their study, supported by Public Health England, Office for National Statistics, and the DFE as well. Had a real close watching brief through the science labs of Oxford University, and a whole variety of professors and doctors and whatever else. Probably the best piece of research I've ever been involved in. It was a very thorough, very robust. If a student turned up late in the morning, you're off the study, you're isolated at home. I think it was so in terms of punctuality, it was good. Because they were very strict in the measures and things they put in place with how it was operated. And we were one of 10 schools in the first instance, and then that scaled up after the first 6 weeks to just over 200 schools. So it was a fair sample size, and it's been referred to lots as this clinical trial. We're just one school. This is our experience that worked for us. I have no idea how it worked in the schools, although I do know, because there were also nightly briefings that my business manager, who was my SLT lead, that she attended every evening with the clinical teams and other staff who were taking part to troubleshoot and work out sort of patterns and things that were happening. So I know broadly successful in other places as well. There were some control schools that were done and delivered on as well. So other schools that were weren't allowed to do it, and they tracked their rate. Whenever they had a ball burst, they had to go home and weren't able to take part. And just to track and make sure the stats were done appropriately as a trial. So I know the Department of Health and Education have been all over it. They know where we are. Now all those results are being data crunched and everything else as we go along. I was hoping for the announcement to say that in September, if there was a positive case, those students who were close contacts could do daily testing, because that would give some level of reassurance. But then again, this is not meant to sound patronising or patronising, as Mel calls it, or condescending or any other way. But the decisions that are being made, I could say what I'm thinking. The government will say what they're thinking. We'll finish up doing what we'll finish up doing what we're told we've got to do anyway. And actually, whatever comes in, the devil will be in the detail, because all we had with the sound bites yesterday, there's still much more detail to come out. If there's someone sent home, is that just it? How does the testing occur? Is it just a PCR test, or is it daily contact testing? Because that was sort of talked about in the rhetoric as well. I saw a few bits later on saying yesterday that some testing would still continue till September from some MPs. So the devil will be in the detail. But like every announcement, one of the things, whenever anything's been announced, changes to exam rules, changes to Ofsted, changes to anything, I normally put a tweet out the following day saying, it will go out today from me, saying that the decisions are being made now. Education across the country, we will look at them, we'll apply it, and we'll make the biggest possible difference for our children. So we just got to make whatever we're given work within school. I suppose I've become. I live in my own bubble as well. My wife's a teacher. Kids are teachers, and I've got another one training as a teacher. I'm surrounded by teachers, and we're rule followers as well. In that we're supposed to wear our mask in Morrison's. We wear our mask in Morrison's. I don't pretend to be exempt. I don't. There's plenty of proper exempt people out there, but I know there's many people now. It seems to be more and more people just not going with it and not following it at the moment. We went to a social function at the weekend, and it was COVID didn't exist. I think it's some people have found it incredibly hard doing what we do following the rules. We followed it, so I think any change to regulation where they say, right, masks have gone, distancing's gone, all these things have gone, you can now have 60,000 people in a stadium, all that those images are going to take some getting used to being back in those situations for many people. Now, again, I think I'll adapt fairly quickly again. I'll get back into where we are. I'll follow whatever the new set of rules are and make them work within our own school.
Yeah.
It's just anxiety everywhere for so many people. And, you know, the students and families in particular. And not forgetting here, we've got so many people who are vulnerable.
Yeah.
For a variety of medically vulnerable, but financially vulnerable, emotionally, mentally vulnerable, physically vulnerable, who, if we've been serious about wearing masks to protect them for this period of time, suddenly we're told not to wear our masks. Do those people not matter anymore if they're still really vulnerable?
Well, this is what worries me, because mask wearing isn't to protect us, really. It's to protect others, isn't it? So
exactly. Well, again, in Bolton, we've not stopped wearing masks in class yet.
Oh wow!
Because when we were told we could do so, how many weeks ago that was? 6 weeks ago, whenever it was, the rates were going through the roof in Bolton.
Yeah,
we were the highest in the country for a few weeks, and before half term, bubbles shutting left, right, and centre. So we were at the point when we were told we didn't have to wear masks anymore. We continued, and to a school, all 28 secondary schools in Bolton decided we would continue wearing our masks in classrooms, and that's not changed at the moment. Now, now being told on the 19th of July everything's gone, we don't break up until the 23rd. So the final week of term, I think, could be interesting for schools that are still in, where the parents and the children have heard on the news it's party time, and yet we're still in school following the rules that we've had in place. So we've still got to look and see how we're going to manage that at the end, and so our bubbles will continue until the end of term, because we're not going to re-timetable for the final week. We'll continue teaching as we've been teaching. How we do our social areas, because we've got staggered breaks and staggered lunches, because that's what's been in place. That will continue just until the end of term, because it'll be more of an issue to change for 1 week than keeping it as it is as well. So we'll get through to the summer, but there's several obstacles, let's say, that have just been plonked in our way. That have not quite
by
helped.
the DFE.
And that's it keeps us on our toes, I suppose.
Well, how have the staff coped? I mean, this like you, I coach lots of leaders, and I mean, yesterday I was running a course on one of them. I had to, when I sent everyone to breakout rooms, I kept her behind, and I was like, "Are you okay?" Because she was just head teacher on her knees. She's like, "I'm just wrecked." So how have the staff? How are they coping?
The staff have been just absolutely amazing. Again, I've moved schools as I do move schools to support schools that I found myself without a leader for one reason or another, and so I started in September when we were just opening up again, but still in the middle of our pandemic. So it's been a year like no other, really. But the staff have been incredible. We've had a mantra really throughout with online learning and everything else that teachers teach and support staff run the school. And the support staff have stepped up incredibly well. People, we're talking some of the lowest paid people in school here, who've just stepped up and are doing a whole variety of things. Now, I've made sure we've done that appropriately. People have had time and people have had additional money if needed and so on to do that. But it's been absolutely incredible. The people that have stepped up, say, to do the testing, but it's not just those. They've then left gaps in their roles, so other people then had to pick those pieces up, etc. So and a bit of backfilling and so on. So they've been remarkable. The teachers, the mix, be able to switch in a moment's notice to online learning or into a blended provision or to the class-based, having to teach from the front and not move in, and complete new ways of operating within a classroom and functioning around assessment. The teacher assessed grades. What was that about? What a period of time for those teachers who were teaching year 11, because the way we've done our bubbles, we had a year 11 team. Well, how we could protect those staff and look after them all the time. So we've the mantra I use all the way through from day one is I use the phrase, which is look after yourself first before helping others, so we can make the biggest difference to children. I repeat that every week in the briefings and things we have in some
Yeah.
form or other. And we don't just say that, we make that happen. So at different
Mm.
times we have to make sure that we take pressure off here, we bring additional covering and so on and so forth. So the staff have been amazing. I've got 2 incredible deputies who lead there, and actually they've been my hardest to look after.
Yeah.
I have done, and I continue to do so, but
Mm.
they've done it. They've been immense in terms of
Yeah.
leading their teams and doing what they're doing. But we
Mm.
all want to make things right and do things right.
Yeah.
Governance, for example, that really stepped up this year. And
Yeah.
again, for me, the notion that we managed to save some money during the lockdown periods because you don't have supply cover, you don't have the same heating bills
Mm.
for the swimming pool and those sort of things. So I said the money we're saving away now, we need to be able to spend out our way out of the pandemic. And the governors
Yeah.
have been as flexible as you can hope for, and bought fully into our dreams and owned it and understood it, and allowed us to invest heavily in our staff well-being as we have done as well. So the
Yeah.
toll has been immense. I mean, the fact we've been able to do the testing for staff as well to keep them in school has been wonderful. Because in fact, when I was isolated about 3 weeks ago, or not, I was able to do the contact testing. Sorry, within school, I had one member of staff, and he was in tears because he got such a busy week on the things he was wanting to do with the students, some of the lovely projects and things we got going in the summer term, and he thought he wasn't going to be in there at the form time because he'd be doing his testing. One of the reasons the office staff decided they came in early. They came in to do the testing for because they're normally in there about 8, 8:15 for the student testing, but they were in at 7:15 to help with the testing for the staff, so they could get about their business to do the things they need to do in school. So just wonderful. I think in terms of the pilot starting, I have no regrets about doing the pilot now, and none of my staff do at all, and the staff are 100% behind being part of what we did. But at the start of it, we were in that period when we'd done the 2 weeks of testing, when everyone was testing, all our students, and then that was finished on the Thursday. Then the following Monday, we had to sign up to start the trial. So we only had the Thursday and Friday to talk to staff, to talk to parents, students about the possibility of this trial. So we went for that, and I started the consultation. The wind was sort of in the right direction. Some staff wanted more information, but I made the decision, and that's one of the difficult decisions I had to make, that right, we're going to go with this.
Yeah.
And I think with hindsight, I think that consultation wasn't strong enough or long enough, and there were still some concerned staff at the time. In terms of where we are, so it probably took another 2 weeks after that for me to be able to meet and talk, and as we're on with the pilot, on with the clinical study, making sure they were fully in, because it was lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, and seeing how it was going to work. For some, actually feeling and seeing it work, and once we got going, absolutely fine with that. But as a leader, I really wanted to take the staff with me, and there was a danger there. I might have lost some people. They're my reflections now, and hindsight is wonderful, isn't it? And I think we've been forced to make, and I'm not blaming anybody here, I'm just saying just the pandemic has forced us. We've been forced to make decisions at speed. That's sometimes or often not being helped by the speed of change when DFE have said, right, you thought you were doing this tomorrow, but this is what's actually happening. And the speed of response. And I've had staff who sacrifice weekends, bank holidays, holidays, in fact, to actually turn things around quickly. And my job has been to say to people, just back off. We'll be fine. We'll explain to families why we're not prepared. But they don't want to let the children down. They don't want to let the families down.
See, it's this kind of thing that you don't hear in the press, isn't it? You get the teacher bashing, and it's so disheartening when you know how hard teachers are working. Teachers, TAs, everybody in schools, how hard they're all working. And I look at my kids' teachers, and I'm like, wow, they've always got that smile for the kids. They've always got, it's just lovely. It's just, they're giving that sense of security that children may be feeling a bit insecure because of what's been going on.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
we mustn't forget that. I think we're over calling it catch up now, and I think it is about recovery.
Mm,
But it's not just recovery from learning; it is recovery around around connection. Really, this is there's been a bereavement in lots of ways. I know it's been losing
mm,
people through COVID, but I mean losing those rites of passage for certain children leaving the year 6
yeah.
into year 7s, or even leaving year 11 without doing examinations, or um,
Even having a
the lack
prom.
having a prom, the lack of social time for students when they were in lockdown.
Mm,
All of those things there and those connections. Schools work so hard on things like cyberbullying, for example. But
mm,
actually, when you've got students locked in their bedroom for 3 months in a lockdown after Christmas, and
yeah.
actually they're on social media all the time, those things are happening. And although we
Mm,
had a close monitor and we were talking to our students every day through form time and everything else as well, you can't pick up the nuances in the same way. And actually, we've come back from lockdown, and we're still unpicking from that lockdown period, unpicking some of the fallouts from that time,
mm,
where
yeah.
things was not just said and then healed. Because quite often there are fallouts on a weekend. You come into school and we spend our time dealing with those issues that have happened at the weekend or evenings.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's part of the job, and that's we help and we do that. But actually, when we've not been able to engage in the same way, and they're much more entrenched because it's happened over a longer period of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got some issues there. But I mean, there's some real positives come out of it as well. For example,
Mm,
some of our most vulnerable children and our most vulnerable families, we've been able to engage with much closer because they've reached out much more than they would have done. So some
mm,
families we've struggled to engage with, where we've not only been students been getting the free school meals, but we've been taking around food parcels ourselves to them.
yeah.
We bought some bunk beds for a family the other day because they had to rehouse really quickly, and
Mm,
we families are coming to us now because I think many more of the services in the local authorities are in crisis.
yeah.
Because I mean, there's a real issue there.
Yeah.
Even though schools may be underfunded, and we
Mm,
are far better funded than many of the other services that those families and children can access.
yeah.
So the people turn to us to fill those gaps at the moment. And
Yeah.
although in lots of ways I don't believe we should be fulfilling those functions, of course we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Of course we're
Well,
going to
because
do
if
that.
you
And
don't,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, we've
Yeah.
invested heavily this year. I've bought in, or we bought in as a school from September. We've got one of my deputies has built a wonderful team in our behaviour support team, where we have a former police officer, social worker,
Mm,
behaviour specialists who come in and work. We have a counsellor now, 0.8 of the time within school, an external counsellor we employ 0.8 of the time, 4 days a week. We
mm,
have our pastoral teams. Rather than that, we don't call them heads per year, but instead of just being one, there are two in each year group to
yeah.
fulfil the functions, to focus on progress, but also on those pastoral needs. So
Yeah.
we've majorly invested and changed in our infrastructure to support
Mm,
our way out of it. And these aren't just quick term fixes now; these are for the next
yeah.
number of years, to be able to
Yeah.
pick up the widened gaps,
Mm,
and actually to try and level that playing field again. It's always about, for me, about equity and equality of
mm,
opportunity, and making sure that those life chances are maximised for everybody.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Rogers History, Tom Rogers, has got a question for you.
Oh right, hi Tom.
Which interview have you enjoyed more? Mal on Teachers Talk Radio or the BBC News at 10?
Right, the Elaine Dunkley, the BBC reporter,
Mm,
is very good, very knowledgeable. If she ever contacts you for a conversation, have a conversation. Great,
yeah.
but they were in school, the BBC, for about 4 hours on the morning before, doing
Mm,
the filming. Spoke to the students. The kids had a great experience. They only shared one of those children on the evening news, but they spoke to the students. That was great.
yeah.
Spoke to parents. That was great. Spoke to the staff. Just having them around the building. That was lovely. But it's produced. It's very slick as a program. I'm not saying you're not slick here now, but
What are you
but
saying?
but but we're having a chat.
Yeah.
We're two educationalists having a chat, and
Mm,
actually this is far more pleasurable because we're having a chat and we're talking, and there we go. There's no the questions steer the conversation, but as always, I just open my mouth and see what comes out.
yeah. And I let
And
you.
Yeah, and thank you very much for helping me end my career early. But so Tom, I'm going to say Mal. Of course, I'm going to say Mal. 2 reasons: one, because I'm enjoying the conversation, and 2, because I'm here live on the radio with her at the moment.
Yeah, and you can't say anything else, really.
Yeah, that's it. What can I say? Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming in, Patrick. That's been really interesting, and I hope lots of people take up this. This clinical trial. I suppose it wouldn't be a trial anymore.
No. So who knows? We may be told that's not happening. It's not going to occur. You go and just do what the next lot of rules are. But whatever happens, we'll make it work for our school. We'll make sure the children get the best possible deal in the safest possible way that we can within the guidelines we've got. And if we think there's something else we can do that won't breach guidelines, that makes it better and safer and whatever else, we'll do that.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thanks very much, Patrick. I'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, and it's been lovely
All
chatting.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Okay, cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Right, coming up at 8 o'clock, we've got Safet Bakulich. But next up, we've got Gail Glenn with the news.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
This is your latest Teacher Talk Radio News with Gail Glenn. The government has launched a consultation setting out proposed changes to improve training to develop world-class teachers. Government proposals aim to introduce new high-quality training courses which are intended to drive up standards of teacher training. The recommendations also propose a new accreditation process, new intensive school placements, and high-quality mentoring for trainees. School Standards Minister Nick Gibbs said, "Supporting our teachers with the highest quality training and professional development is the best way in which we can improve pupil outcomes and is central to the government's levelling up agenda. We want this country to be the best place to become a great teacher, and that starts with high quality initial teacher training." The proposed changes would build upon the ambitious reforms the government has implemented to create a golden thread of training, support and professional development informed by high quality evidence which will run through each phase of a teacher's career. The government in England is easing rules on self-isolation for the fully vaccinated and the under-18s. People from within these categories will, after the 16th of August, no longer have to self-isolate if they come into contact with a coronavirus case. They will be advised to take a coronavirus test, but that will not be compulsory. Following concerns about large groups of children being forced to miss out on education if cases were detected, the bubble system in schools is to be scrapped. Gavin Williamson, the Education Secretary for England, said, "We recognise that the system of bubbles and isolation is causing disruption to many children's education." According to the Department for Education statistics, around 640,000 state school pupils, 8.5% of England's total, did not attend class for COVID-related reasons on July the 1st. Alan Crosby, Head of English at James Gillespie High School in Edinburgh, has told the EIS that they will drop To Kill a Mockingbird from its curriculum due to its white saviour motif and cancel of Mice and Men because both books' lead characters are not people of colour. These efforts to decolonise the curriculum have, however, met with some resistance, with Calvin Robinson, a policy advisor to the Department of Education, stating in the Telegraph, "Teachers are not just reading the books, they are teaching English literature. We can talk about the use of the N-word and why it is not appropriate for anyone to use. I think it's ridiculous to cancel the books because of it." This has been your daily education news briefing.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts, or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsier puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.cre8tiveresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TTRadio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club. Introducing the Leadership Masterclass series by Diana Osagi. Learn how to ditch your fears and develop your leadership confidence. How to deal with difficult colleagues. How to thrive when you lead in a challenging environment. And how to get colleagues to buy into your vision. Join Diana for her online leadership masterclasses starting on the 10th of July and running all the way through the summer. These sessions are the perfect way to prepare and refresh for the next academic year and beyond. Book your place at courageousleadership.co.uk/events now. The first 50 leaders to sign up get an additional free mini coaching session with Diana herself. Don't miss this. Courageous Leadership Masterclasses at courageousleadership.co.uk/events.
Morning, morning, morning. What are your thoughts on that news? On cancelling To Kill a Mockingbird and Of Mice and Men? It disturbs me. I'll say this. Yeah, it bothers me because my sister is 5 years older than me. So when she was doing in those days, CSE or O levels. She was reading Of Mice and Men, and when she finished the book, she handed it to me. So I read that when I was in primary school, and I loved it. And it's a beautifully written book. And then when I was the second lot ever to do GCSEs in 1989. And again, I loved Of Mice and Men. And recently I picked up to see, because people were complaining about Of Mice and Men on Twitter because of the way Curly's wife is treated and blah, blah. But isn't that what we do as teachers? Like, this is a text from the early 20th century written by a man, written by a white man in America. And part of teaching is looking at these texts, looking at the context of its times, and talking about, what what was it like? Yes, it was more of a sexist time, the way people from diverse backgrounds were discussed. If we're looking at Curly from Of Mice and Men, he had some kind of special need. So it's just, for me, it feels wrong getting rid of those books, because from a literature, like Calvin Robinson says, and it's not like me to always agree with Calvin Robinson, but like Calvin Robinson says, as a piece of literature, it's fantastic. Graham Collum, our voiceover guy and Teachers Talk Radio executive, member of the executive team, says definitely needs the talking points of To Kill a Mockingbird in class. Agree with Calvin 100%. Yeah, so do I. I mean, I've seen a lot of debates about the N-word. I'd never say it in class. I was a history teacher, so it would come up in the sense of when you're looking at slavery and you're looking at some of the text from the time, they're using words like that. Now, I would use that as an opportunity to not use the word, but to say, now you'll see this word and it is offensive. And at the time, they used it as though it was normal. But they were being offensive using the word then. They knew they were being offensive then. It's just now we know we don't use that word. And I think, I don't know, it's like, this is where it winds me up, because, I mean, when I was growing up in East London, I remember there being a thing, something that said, oh, they're taking Three Little Pigs off the early years reading list because it will offend Muslims. Now, I had a lot of Muslim friends and they were like, what? Which Muslims? Have you spoken to Muslims? It was just like, you're just making things harder for Muslims by coming out with that kind of stuff. Graham says, exactly, erasing history encourages its repetition. Perfectly put, Graham. That's exactly what I think. If you don't talk about these things, it will happen again. It's books like To Kill a Mockingbird and Of Mice and Men have stayed with me my entire life. I still can remember scenes from it, and there were difficult scenes from it, but they were important to discuss in class. And how would we deal with those things today in the same way? What would happen today? It's important to talk about how we've moved on, hopefully. I'll get off my soapbox now. So we've got Safet coming in soon. We've had Patrick Otley O'Connor in talking about the clinical clip. Oh my goodness. Right. It's clinical trials. Not the clinical trials. Okay, so it's the clinical trials. So Patrick Lee O'Connor has been in talking about that, and we are going to talk to Safet when he comes in. So I was talking about the news, wasn't I? What was going on in the news? I didn't quite get around to finishing the headlines. So what else is going on in the news? The Sun. The Sun. Do you know, I have a real, like a lot of people have an issue with the Sun, but they still have about 3 million people reading the paper, and I just don't get it. When a few years back they were dissing for Raheem Sterling for having money, for buying a house, for breathing, basically. And now Sterling brings home the bacon, you know, that kind of thing. Suddenly he's a hero because he scored a few goals. But yeah, so it just, the Sun winds me up. It's another rant of mine. The Sun, bring home the bacon, lads. Graham Column says, I can't speak now. What's wrong with me? Right. The Sun headline last week. Come on, England. Even Hancock's scored. Okay. I'm trying not to hurl. The image, the awful. I don't know what I was thinking in pressing play on that video, but it was wrong on so many levels, and never has that gif, my eyes, been more apt. Just hideous. Okay, Daily Star, come on, England, you gave Harry's magic balls a good rub. I have to say, the Star's done really well the last. So that's really tickled me. Right, okay, I'll try and be professional. Okay. Okay, come on, England. You gave Harry's magic balls a good rub, and we got a. I can't read that out. That's outrageous. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, anyway, it says touchwood. If you want to know what the Daily Star says, I'm not reading that out because that's really yeah, it's too much. It's very funny, I have to say, but I'm not reading that out live on the radio. Okay, have I done the news? Check. I've done the news. Check. I've done advert 1. Check. It's the 7th of July. Now, do you remember where you were? 7th of July. Crikey, what year was it? 2005. Now, that's when the 7/7 bombings happened in London. If Safet comes in, I'll continue what I'm going to talk about after he calls in. But that was 14 years ago. I mean, in one way, it's hard to believe. In another way, you can believe that. It was 14 years ago. I mean, to be fair, the last year feels like we've been in Narnia, doesn't it? You know, just the last week, even for a lot of teachers. So 14 years ago, 4 suicide bombers with rucksacks full of explosives attacked central London. They killed 52 people and injured hundreds more. It was the worst single terrorist atrocity on British soil. Okay, Safet's in the house. So Safet, if you click on the little person so I can let you in. Now, Oiti, just type in where were you on that day? Were you teaching? How did you hear the news about 7/7? Yeah, I was teaching at that point, and it was, yeah, it was a pretty emotional day, I have to say. I was teaching in London Academy at the time. So I will be talking about that after I've had a chat with Safet. Welcome,
Good morning.
Safet. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Sorry, I'm
I'm-
a couple of minutes late. I do apologize.
No, don't worry. I normally play the news, but I played it early today. It's good to talk to you because we normally talk once a year at the
Yeah.
Empowering Young People to Change the World conference, but obviously that didn't go on this year, but it did go on online, and it's still going on, isn't it?
It is, and it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly feel to be part of that every year, and it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
And for someone like me, to be honest, it's because of the fact that there seems to be more schools here learning about genocide in Bosnia than in Bosnia, simply because of the situation there. So it's yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, well, your story, because you obviously lived through the Bosnian Serb War. So whereabouts were you? And obviously I've heard it, but listeners, hopefully no viewers, because I'm still in my bathrobes. So, give us a little bit of your story.
Yeah, I'll try to make a little bit because I tend to talk a lot generally. But it's one thing I always like to start when I talk about Bosnia and what happened in Bosnia is to actually say, what many people don't know, that Bosnia has been in existence for over 10 centuries in various forms as part of different sort of ownerships. But in the 90s, when the Yugoslavia fell apart, and all the republics which had their own parliaments started going independently. I was 16 in 92 when the war started in Bosnia, and it's not something as a child that you think about that you're going to go through. And we've all taught about the World War II and then the Holocaust, and how people were put in concentration camps, things like that. You just never think it's going to happen to you. And it did. I watched when Serbian army went around. They occupied the town first, took over the local government, which we found out later on during the Hague proceedings that this was all planned in 91. But obviously you go on with your life, and many people don't tend to want to get involved in politics, and many people ignore things as we know things are happening. Things that happen here, people just want to ignore everything. And we kind of got on with it until then, but it was really difficult to see soldiers coming through the streets asking for men, which in our case we knew meant Muslim men, most predominantly in my area. And people started marching up the road. I started walking as well. I was 16. I was quite tall, and my mum, I used to say years ago, my mum shouted at me, but I kind of rephrased it, said my mum raised her voice and said to me, you get back, you're just a child. And I did go back. I'd never argued with my mum. I went back in the house, and I was lucky not to be picked up. My dad and my brother went, along with all the neighborhood, all the men from the neighborhood. It was awful, because then you hear gunshots and you're thinking, what's going on? They were for a while, they will congregate to the main road, and then later on they were taken to first concentration camp called Karaterm, which was local factory, which was pre-prepared. Couple of weeks in, actually just during those couple of weeks, we heard that some of the guards would actually allow food to be brought in. So my sister, my older sister, and a few other neighbors, women, they would just pick up any food they've got and take it there. And some guards would actually allow, and actually, would allow, for example, my brother to come to the gate, take the food, and say we're okay. But some guards would threaten them and tell them, go away. This is not a holiday camp and things like that. So it was, it's just something that you just cannot. Still to this day, it seems like something just should not have happened, and you can't believe it did happen. And then my dad was moved to Omenska concentration camp, which was his second camp, and that's when I really thought I lost my dad, because what we heard is, if you're taken there, you're taken there for a reason. Someone wanted you there. You were either part of local government, you were an official, council officials, teacher, doctors, anyone who was known was, in the main, were taken there, and many ended up being killed. But luckily, my dad did survive, and he was eventually taken. Actually, in August, on 5th of August, 1992, there was a group of British journalists with Penny Marshall, Ed Viliami, and Mr. Williams, I think. Can't remember who else. From ITN, ITV, and Channel 4, I think Guardian combination. And they went and they were given permission to film, because the Serbian nationalists tried to sell it as if it wasn't a concentration camp, as if it was a place where people come to feel safe. Which we know that wasn't the case. But that story, to this day, I will always believe it. It did save thousands of lives, because what happened after that, some were released immediately from Ternopily concentration camp, which was my brother. During the filming in August, my brother actually was moved to Ternopily concentration camp, and that's when I saw him actually when the report we was watching the report on TV, and I couldn't believe it. I saw my brother on the window, and a couple of other neighbours, and it was, you're happy you see he's alive, but you can see barbed wire soldiers around. It is a concentration camp. But he was released from there. My dad was taken to Majnička concentration camp, his third, and eventually, just a few months after that, they managed to agree release of some of the people from the camps, and my dad was then released to Croatia first, and then he was brought to UK, and he then tried working with Red Cross, trying to get us to the UK as well, and eventually it took a while, but we've been all lucky, and we're all alive, and we're all here.
And in terms of, because there was a genocide in Srebrenica, that's it. And so was that in the, because I think I remember was it you that was talking about a little village, or it might have been
what really, because I mean, it's a bit difficult to explain some of the things, because people use the conflict in The Hague, that basically it seems, and everyone's calling it genocide in Srebrenica genocide, etc. And it's genocide in Bosnia. The fact is, the war started in 92, lasted till 95. And Srebrenica was a culmination of events what happened for the 3 years. The world kept watching genocide happen in Bosnia. And Srebrenica was one of the 5 safe havens in Bosnia. They would call them safe havens, safe areas, which was supposedly should have been controlled by the UN and ensure there's no fighting. However, that didn't happen. They didn't really do anything to save any one of those. And unfortunately, Srebrenica was overflown with people from surrounding areas, and UN was there. But Serbian army was allowed to come in and take people away. Thousands of people were taken away. There are thousands still being found in mass graves today. They're still digging mass graves. There's still mothers of Srebrenica still looking for their loved ones. And over just a few days, over 8,000 people were killed under those circumstances, under the watchful eye of UN. And that's what really hurts. Is I always, it's kind of who do you feel more angry about? The person that did it, who's inevitably a bad person, or the person who could have stopped it but didn't want to?
Yeah.
And that's the way we see it. That's the way it was. I mean, the world keeps saying, never again, and that was said after Holocaust. Yet, we keep seeing again and again.
Yeah.
When are we going to say never again and mean it?
Yeah.
And I think that's you've seen how the young people when we meet up annually with Empowering Young People projects. It's so wonderful to hear those young people trying to change the world. That's not is exactly what they're trying to do, to try and we all can make a difference, and they certainly when you hear the stories what they're trying to do, and my hope is by sharing my story about the genocide and talking about it in general with my friends who are from Rwanda and Cambodia. I've been honored and privileged to meet many survivors from Holocaust as well, and us sharing those stories is hoping that those young people, when they come into power, they're not going to take as long as the current and the politicians of the last few decades have taken to do things. And that's really what we must do. We can't wait for the hate to keep developing and then complain about it. Everyone's happy to complain about the refugees, but no one tries and stops the war.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
If you allow the war to continue, you're going to have refugees. I mean, that's what happened in Syria. I remember the beginning of it. I thought this is just going to go on, and that's exactly what it is, because they kept talking about it but never doing anything. There was hundreds of peace conferences, as far as I recall, during the war in Bosnia. It's like, hang on a sec, just stop the war, then you talk about how to resolve things, but you got to stop the war first. But no, the war continued in the middle of Europe as well, and I've as I said, I've had honor to work alongside people who survived Holocaust and Rwanda genocide as well. And then Rwanda genocide happened during the Bosnian genocide. UN failed on two fronts. Awfully. I mean, just 100 days, 1 million people to be killed in Rwanda. It's horrible.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And so how did you get to the UK? Was it the Red Cross helped your dad to get you over?
Yes, as I said, my dad was, because just to mention, when my dad was released, the agreement was the Serbian government agreed to release some people, but they had to be taken to a third country. They were not allowed to stay in Croatia, and they're not supposed to come back to Bosnia. That was the agreement. So they had to ensure all those people were transferred to a third country. My dad came to UK. He worked with Red Cross, and what was happening during that time, because he came in here in December 92, and for a year, every time we'd get a notification from Red Cross, we got the papers, we go to local council, local offices, which were controlled by Serbian nationalists, and they would just say, no, not valid, go away. And that went on, and eventually we got the papers that they said that myself and my older sister would be allowed to leave, but my mum and my younger sister had to stay. And that wasn't an easy decision. Because we had no idea what was going to happen, and it's one of those that you have to say, we have to try and see who can survive effectively. So we had to. It wasn't easy. We left on 2nd December 93, and that was the last time I saw my grandma. And but we were again lucky in transport, because we got here on the next day. Next day we were here in Balham, and I remember coming to Balham, seeing my dad after such a long time. And we couldn't talk. We're happy, obviously, to see him, but my mum was at the time, and my younger sister left behind in Prijedor, and that was difficult. But again, we were lucky that eventually they were allowed to leave as well.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah.
So that's why there is this kind of swayed from one thing to another. But Srebrenica has and should have a special mention when it comes to genocide in Bosnia, simply because of the huge failure by the UN, and not only that they couldn't say defend, and if the Serbian forces attacked them and that they overpowered them, that would be one thing. But it's the fact that they stood aside, and there are videos of UN soldiers dancing with the Serbs, and people could say, oh, they were scared, etc., things like that. That's not what UN should be doing. And drinking with Mladic, etc. It's not something that they should be doing, certainly. But just to keep saying, oh, we can't have this repeat again, and then keep repeating it. It's something needs to change. UN certainly, we had so many people protesting with us during the 90s in London, and one of the things we used to shout, UN useless, and completely is useless. However, I strongly feel we need something like UN, but we need UN that works. We need UN that will go in where there's a need, not wait for politicians who are on opposing side who will never agree to anything. It's you will never have Russia and America to agree to anything together. It's always the same thing. It's like, what is the point then? Those people, would have preferred to die honorably, but not to be kind of given false hope, and then you're just taken away and shot blank range. It's awful. And as I said, this was 90s in the middle of Europe. And I know it might sound disrespectful, but I certainly don't mean any disrespect to any other parts of the world. But if it can happen in Europe, if it can happen in Europe after Holocaust, if it can happen in Europe in the 90s, when everyone had access to that information, there was no way of hiding things that were happening there. Then we can't be surprised if things happening elsewhere where there's control over information flow, and it just the government's not willing to do anything.
So how do you feel when you see, because you came over to the UK, was it a welcoming experience when you came to the UK? Obviously from your dad, but from the public?
I've been told, I've been asked about, have I experienced racism and things like that. Again, it's one of those things that, and perhaps it sounds wrong the way I say it, but I'll blame that on my English being second language. I feel lucky to have not experienced that, because that leaves a mark on you. But I have had few things which always makes you think. I've had things said to me, it's like, you don't look like them, as in Muslims. And I often wondered, what do they really think Muslim looks like? And I've been told, or you're not as dark as them. I do tan quite well during the summer, although we've not had much summer this year. But it is those things, and you still wonder. I remember being after the 7/7 bombing, which is what we're talking today as well about, and it again made me emotional, because it's innocent people dying. No one wants to see that. But the things that I experienced were things like, that's what. They do kill innocent people because they promised 40 virgins, if I can say on this early on this show, 40 virgins when they die. And I remember asking gentlemen, can you explain to me what would a woman do with 40 virgin women? It's such a nonsense, but people have this thing. This guy said to me, saying the guy, he was a gentleman who was, I think it was pension age at the time. And he said, oh, no, I heard if someone mentioned it, but then you have to say, I heard someone say, don't say it as a fact. Because that hurts people. If I have to explain to someone, no problem if you ask, but if you actually state something as a fact, it's going to upset people. It's again, what other people have experienced, I shouldn't be complaining, but at the same time, if I can raise my voice on behalf of anyone, then I should do so. I'm given an opportunity when I'm talking about genocide as well. It's also talking on behalf of all those people who haven't survived. Yeah, in terms of people that I've had pleasure meeting, there's so many people who are understanding of what has happened and what it means to leave home. We had a neighbor, just quickly tell you a story. We had one of our neighbors up in Wandsworth, and when after a few years of living next to us, she came to our house, and we were the first people she told that she's selling the house. She didn't tell any other neighbors. And she was crying. She said, I'm so emotional about leaving the house that I'm selling, going to a new house that I bought. He said, I can't even begin to think how you felt when you had to leave because of your religion. So, yeah, I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, no, but that's so true, isn't it? I mean, like, because when you hear our Home Secretary, Priti Patel, saying things like, well, there's boats of refugees, we're not going to let them in. How does that make you feel?
No one wants to be a refugee.
Yeah.
If the war was stopped, even when it started, if it was stopped soon, then I probably wouldn't be here, wouldn't be talking to you. Obviously, that I love talking to you, but I would have still been in Prijedor, hopefully happy, living with my family. I'm not saying there are not people who are benefiting. There's always criminals who are benefiting from bad situations. There are always criminals who benefit during the war. There is always people who benefit during financial crashes. That's a fact. There will always be people, but there's a majority of people who are suffering. And I didn't ask my dad, or my dad didn't ask certainly to go to 3 concentration camps just in hope to go to UK.
Yeah.
And there's just not enough understanding of why people are leaving, and when you have wars around, that people are going to flee. That's just everyone use survival instinct. Stop the war. Stop the war. Stop selling guns to those people in the first place. That's the thing. Stop financing genocide. Stop working with countries that are committing genocide. Stop funding them. That's what we're doing. We're funding genocide effectively by either selling weapons and doing trades with those countries. You are then effectively funding genocide.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like them to answer. How do they feel about that? What makes them, how do they think at all about those things? Does it matter to them? I'd rather they were honest and say that we don't really care about refugees. I don't care what we want. It's just about us. No problem. At least say it. Don't try and say one thing and then do another.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is the problem, isn't it? It's like condemning all these refugees who have absolutely no choice, are hoping for survival. I mean, I've taught an awful lot, having taught in London, an awful lot of refugee children. And the damage that the things that they've seen, the damage on their mental health, it's incredible, really, and it is painful. And then you have people saying, we don't want those refugees here, on the boat and stuff like that. And you just think, you've got no idea. You've absolutely no idea what these people have been through. And there is no way, if you're a mother or a father and you've got your little child on a boat, why would you do that unless you had absolutely no choice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember that little I'm just kind of seeing the picture now in my head, that little boy being swept on the beach and being carried, and everyone's like, oh, we need to do something, and then suddenly everyone's just forgotten about it. We're not, and I'm saying we as British, I'm British citizen, so we're not as good as some of us trying to make it out to be. We've got a long way to go. I've always, I'm sure there are many people who have always thought of UK as kind of a middle ground. You had the East and Western bloc. You had the United States on one side. You had Russia on the other. There's always going to be conflict. The UK was kind of seen in between, and with Europe growing, UK was always seen as a leader, as such. And it's suddenly, don't want to be part of that, which is quite weird. But
I think so.
We need to be thinking more global. Everything, the whole world should be working together, not against each other. I mean, if you look at the thing with the virus now, the world has come easier together on a virus than on when people are killed on mass and genocide and things like that. But when everyone's threatened, then we'll work together. It's like if aliens attacked us, I'm sure they wouldn't say, "Oh, we're not going to let refugees fight for us." It's very difficult to watch. I mean, I've been here long enough, and you just see it every year, and it hurts. But my hope is, and as you know, when we talk to these young people, I do believe the future is better. That hopefully, my hope is they don't get corrupted by what they get involved in, because you often wonder is some people have to do certain things to keep their jobs. As we know, there's pressure in politicians, so sometimes you kind of feel you're better than that. And you also feel as they're doing it just keep their job. So it's kind of can't hate them too much. But you would want things to change. I want to see things done because they need to be done. I don't want anyone to see. I mean, as I said, if we're gonna continue funding and trading with countries that are committing genocide, then we seriously have something wrong. That we need to look at it more deeply.
Yeah, absolutely. Safet, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much coming in and talking about obviously very difficult issues. And I'll definitely have you on the show again to talk some more.
Thank you. It was great to hear you.
Hopefully I'll see you in person next year.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Okay, all right.
Best wishes. Take care.
Okay, bye. Okay. That was difficult, wasn't it? That was a difficult listen. And this is what people don't realize, the real stories behind refugees, the difficulty that they've been through. I mean, if you can imagine that difficult decision Safet and his family had to make in leaving behind his mother and his younger sister, that's unimaginable, breaking up your family and then hoping that they can join you. So that's the end of the show, really. I didn't get around to talking about 7/7, so maybe next week, tune in next week Wednesday, because James and I have swap shows again. And today we have got Neil Mullen. No, we haven't. What day is it today? Wednesday. See, I'm very confused because I'm normally on Monday. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea who's on today. I thought I wrote it down, but Neil was on yesterday. So I'm like, I've got Harry Waters down. It's Wednesday. So it's either, no, it's not Wakar. He's not available this week. So Oh, Christopher Vowles is definitely on today. Okay, so I'll see you all next week. I hope you have a good week, and make sure you live for the week, not just the weekend. I'm Mal Krishnasamy, and you've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.